The boardroom smelled like expensive leather and decisions that ruined lives. Joseph Davis sat with his back straight, hands folded
This
on the
looks good. Any
mahogany table,
changes?
Cynthia's
Looks good
hospital
from here.
bracelet
Agreed.
pressing into his
Proceed.
palm
Great,
through his
finalizing.
jacket pocket.
Listen to me.
12 board members stared
have
at
to
him
act
like he was a
now,
spreadsheet that didn't
before
balance.
it's too late.
Rebecca Sanchez stood 3 feet to his right, her
The energy
CEO
sector
posture
is down
perfect,
again.
her
I
expression
need to adjust the
unreadable.
portfolio now.
Donald Thomas, silver-haired and severe at the head of the table, leaned forward. His voice carried the weight of someone used to being obeyed. "Mr. Davis, you understand the severity of these accusations." Joseph's throat felt dry, but his voice came out steady. "I understand you're about to make a choice. I'm here to make sure you have all the facts first." Rebecca turned her head slightly, met his eyes for half a second. Her jaw tightened, then she looked back at the board. Let him speak. Ryan Robinson, CFO, platinum watch catching the overhead lights, smiled like a man holding 4 aces. He adjusted his cufflinks. This should be entertaining. Joseph reached for his messenger bag, fingers brushing the worn canvas. 6 weeks ago, his biggest problem was explaining to his 7-year-old daughter why adults made such a fuss about coffee dates. Now, he was betting everything on 12 strangers believing him over a man who'd been stealing from them for 8 months. He pulled out his laptop. The screen flickered to life. 6 weeks earlier, he said quietly, more to himself than to them. The memory hit him like cold water. Friday night, October 14th, 8:47 p.m. Joseph had been standing at his kitchen counter, Cynthia's pink medication organizer in one hand, his phone buzzing in the other. Kevin Perez's name lit up the screen for the 3rd time in 10 minutes. He answered. "I already said no." Kevin's voice came through too loud, like he was calling from a bar. Background noise confirmed it. "You said no to the last 3 setups. This one's different." Joseph twisted the cap off Cynthia's heart medication, checked the dosage against the prescription bottle. Tuesday's compartment, 5 milligrams. They're all different until they're exactly the same. Blind date, Sunday, 3 p.m., Lakeview Coffee. Her name's Rebecca. That's all you get. Cynthia has soccer at 10. I'm not dragging her around town so I can sit across from a stranger and pretend I enjoy small talk. Kevin's laugh sounded like he'd been drinking. Soccer ends at noon. You've got 3 hours. Stop hiding behind that kid. Joseph's hand tightened on the pill bottle. His voice dropped. I'm not hiding. I'm being a father. Michelle died 3 years ago, Joe. 3 years. You're allowed to try. The name landed like a punch he should have seen coming. Joseph set down the medication, stared at the refrigerator. Cynthia's drawing from last Tuesday hung at eye level, held up by a magnet shaped like a sunflower. She'd drawn their house, 2 stick figures on the porch. 1 tall, 1 small. No third figure. She'd stopped drawing 3 people 2 years ago. He exhaled slowly. What's her deal? No idea. Natalie set it up. Says Rebecca's some executive type. Works too much. Needs to get out more. Sound familiar? I work a normal amount. You haven't taken a day off since Cynthia's birthday. That was 4 months ago. Joseph looked at the kitchen table. 2 placemats, 2 forks, 2 glasses. Everything came in pairs now. The silence stretched long enough that Kevin filled it. Just show up. Worst case, you waste an hour. Best case, you get a good story. Joseph closed his eyes, pictured sitting across from some polished professional who'd spent 30 minutes asking about his job, his hobbies, his thoughts on craft beer or travel destinations or whatever people talked about when they didn't know each other. Pictured explaining he was a data analyst. Pictured her eyes glazing over. Pictured the check coming, the polite goodbyes, the relief of getting back to his car and driving home to the life that made sense. He opened his eyes. Fine. But if this is another disaster, you're buying drinks for a month. Kevin's laugh exploded through the speaker. Deal. Lakeview Coffee, 3 p.m., Sunday. Don't bail. The call ended. Joseph stood there holding his phone, wondering what he'd just agreed to. Saturday morning, Cynthia's soccer game ran long. Joseph sat on the aluminum bleachers, watching his daughter chase the ball with the kind of focus she usually reserved for drawing. She was small for 7, dark braids bouncing as she ran, her number 12 jersey hanging loose on her frame. The cardiologist said moderate exercise was fine as long as she didn't overdo it. Joseph tracked every sprint, every sudden stop, his chest tight with the specific fear that came with knowing your child's heart didn't work quite right. The game ended 3-2, Cynthia's team losing but happy. She ran over, face flushed, grinning with the gap where her front tooth used to be. "Did you see my goal?" Joseph handed her the water bottle. "I saw. You faked out their defender." She drank half the bottle in 4 gulps, wiped her mouth with the back of her hand. "Can we get pizza? We're having tacos at home." Her face fell. "But Daddy—" "You had pizza twice this week. Tacos, non-negotiable." She kicked at the grass, already moving on. "Can I stay up late?" "It's Saturday. You can stay up until 8:30. "That's not late." "It's 30 minutes past your normal bedtime." She considered this, decided it was acceptable. "Okay. Can I draw after dinner?" "Always." They walked to the car, Cynthia's small hand in his. The October air had that crisp edge that meant winter was coming. Joseph unlocked the doors, helped Cynthia into her booster seat, buckled her in. She was already talking about the game, replaying every kick, every pass, the referee's bad call in the second half that everyone disagreed with. Joseph drove home, half listening, thinking about tomorrow. Lakeview Coffee at 3 p.m. He didn't even know what Rebecca looked like. Didn't know anything except her first name and that she worked too much. The whole setup felt like walking into a room blindfolded. Sunday morning arrived too fast. Joseph woke at 6:30, Cynthia still asleep in her room. He made coffee, black, no sugar, checked his work email, reviewed the merger spreadsheets he'd been analyzing all week. The numbers still didn't sit right. Duplicate vendor payments, shell company names, routing numbers that repeated in patterns that felt too clean to be coincidence. He'd flagged it for Rebecca Sanchez, the new CEO who was starting Monday. She'd want to see it first thing. His phone buzzed. Kevin's text lit up the screen. "Still on for 3?" Joseph typed back. "Unfortunately." "That's the spirit. Wear something that doesn't look like you're going to Home Depot." Joseph glanced down at his gray t-shirt and jeans. Fair point. By 2:30 p.m. he'd changed into dark jeans and a button-down shirt, navy blue, sleeves rolled to his elbows. Cynthia sat on his bed, watching him check his reflection in the mirror. She tilted her head. "You look fancy. I look normal. You don't wear that shirt for normal things." Joseph turned to face her. "I'm meeting someone for coffee." Her eyes widened. "A girl?" "A woman. And it's not a big deal, just coffee." Cynthia's grin spread slow and knowing. "Is she pretty?" "I don't know. I haven't met her yet." "Then how do you know you want coffee with her?" Joseph sat down on the bed, eye level with his daughter. "Uncle Kevin set it up. Sometimes adults do that. They introduce friends to other friends." Cynthia processed this, her face serious. "Is she going to be my new mom?" The question hit harder than it should have. Joseph kept his voice gentle. "No, sweetheart. It's just coffee. Nothing's changing." She studied his face the way she did when she was trying to figure out if he was telling the truth. Then she nodded, apparently satisfied. "Okay, but if she's mean, you don't have to have coffee with her." "Deal." He dropped Cynthia at his neighbor Mrs. Patterson's apartment, promised to be back by 5, drove to Lakeview Coffee with his hands too tight on the steering wheel. The parking lot was half full, couples walking by the water, a guy jogging with a golden retriever. No Kevin, no prank crew, just a normal Sunday afternoon. Inside, the coffee shop smelled like roasted beans and cinnamon. Wooden beams, big windows facing the lake, tables full of people with laptops pretending to write novels. Joseph ordered black coffee, found a table near the window. 3 p.m. came, then 3:05, then 3:10. He checked his phone. No texts, no missed calls. Typical. His friends probably thought this was hilarious, making him sit here alone, waiting like the punchline of a joke he didn't get yet. At 3:12, he stood up to leave. The door chimed. A woman stepped inside like she'd been there before, like she wasn't nervous, like she wasn't trying. Joseph looked up, ready to see Kevin or one of his buddies walking in laughing. Instead, he saw her. She wore a tailored navy blazer over a white blouse, dark jeans that actually fit, leather bag slung over one shoulder. Her hair was pulled back in a low ponytail, a few strands curling loose around her face. She scanned the room the way people do when they're checking exits, efficient and quick. Her eyes landed on him. Didn't slide away. Stayed. She walked straight toward his table. Joseph's first thought was that she had the wrong guy. His second thought was that if she did, he hoped she wouldn't figure it out too fast. She stopped in front of him. Her voice was calm, direct. "Kevin or Jonathan?" Joseph blinked. "What? Did Kevin send you, or Jonathan?" "Kevin." He stood up too quickly, knee bumping the table. His coffee sloshed near the rim. "That's me. Kevin sent me. I'm Joseph." She smiled, not mocking, just amused, like she'd already decided he was human and that was fine. "Rebecca." She held out her hand. Joseph shook it. Her grip was firm, her fingers warm. The contact lasted 2 seconds, but his palm still felt it after she let go. She sat down across from him like it was the most natural thing in the world. Joseph sat too, trying to catch up. She tilted her head slightly, studying him with an expression that was equal parts curious and entertained. "I'm guessing we're victims of the same prank." The tension in his chest loosened. He let out a short laugh. "Yeah, my friend Kevin thinks he's doing me a favor." Rebecca's smile widened. "My assistant Natalie said the same thing. Told me I needed to get out more, meet someone named Joseph, show up at 3 p.m. She paused. "She didn't mention you'd look like you were planning an escape route." Heat climbed up Joseph's neck. "I wasn't—" He stopped. "Okay, maybe a little. Understandable. I almost didn't come either. Thought it might be some elaborate setup." Joseph leaned back slightly, relaxing for the first time since walking in. "So you thought it was a prank too?" "Absolutely. But then I figured worst case I waste an hour. Best case I get a good story." He couldn't stop looking at her, not in a way that felt creepy, but in a way that felt like trying to solve a puzzle. She wasn't what he expected. Not a girl from the gym or someone with loud energy and perfect pictures. She was calm, steady, real. She was beautiful in a way that didn't ask for permission. Rebecca caught him looking. "Not what you expected?" He rubbed the back of his neck. "Not even close. I thought Kevin would set me up with someone who talks about exotic pets or essential oils." Rebecca laughed, and the sound made him want to hear it again. "No exotic pets, just terrible coffee decisions and a job that takes up too much time." "What do you do?" Her expression shifted slightly, like she was deciding how much to share. "I run a tech startup. Well, ran. We got acquired last month. Now I'm overseeing the integration." Joseph's brain caught up half a second too late. "Wait, you're Rebecca Sanchez?" She nodded slowly. "You've heard of me. You're starting Monday as CEO of my company." "Of my—" Her eyebrows lifted. "You work for Meridian Analytics?" "Data analyst. 3rd floor." They stared at each other. Then Rebecca started laughing, a real laugh that made her cover her mouth with her hand. Joseph joined in, shaking his head. "This is unbelievable. Kevin and Natalie are either geniuses or idiots. Both, definitely both." The conversation shifted after that, easier now that the absurdity was out in the open. Rebecca told him about the acquisition, the 16-hour days leading up to the deal closing, the board meetings with her father Donald, who thought she worked too hard and lived too little. Joseph told her about Cynthia, the soccer games, the bedtime stories, the constant balancing act of being a single parent and a full-time employee. Rebecca's posture changed when he mentioned his daughter. She leaned forward instead of back. "How old?" "7. Smart as hell, stubborn as her mom. Her mom? Joseph's throat tightened. He kept his voice steady. Michelle, she died 3 years ago. Cancer. Rebecca's face softened, but she didn't do the thing most people did. Didn't say she was sorry, didn't fill the silence with empty words. She just nodded once, like she understood that some things didn't need commentary. She told him about her own past. Engaged once to a man named Ryan who worked in finance, wore expensive suits, made all the right moves. It fell apart 2 years ago when she realized he wanted a wife who'd quit her career, not a partner who'd keep building hers. Her father approved of Ryan, thought he was stable, a safe choice. The breakup disappointed Donald more than it hurt Rebecca. Joseph listened, watching the way her hands moved when she talked, the way her eyes stayed on his instead of drifting to her phone or the window. She wasn't performing. She was just there. At some point, the coffee shop started filling up around them. A couple of college kids took a table behind Rebecca, whispering like they were breaking up. A barista called out names. Someone dropped a spoon. The sound of laughter drifted from the counter. But Joseph and Rebecca stayed in their own pocket of air, the world moving around them while they sat still. Rebecca glanced at her watch, let out a small laugh. "We've been here an hour and a half." Joseph checked his phone. 4:47 p.m. "I need to pick up Cynthia by 5. Rebecca stood, slipped her bag over her shoulder. "Your friends are going to want a full report." Joseph stood too. "They'll probably throw a party, like they just solved my whole life." Rebecca's smile turned teasing. "Did they?" Joseph opened his mouth, closed it again. The answer was no, but also maybe. He settled on honesty. "I don't know yet." They walked out together. The air had cooled, the smell of lake water mixing with the faint scent of pine from the trees lining the parking lot. The sky was pale blue with streaks of orange near the horizon. Rebecca stopped beside a gray Subaru that looked like it had lived a real life. Dent in the rear bumper, coffee stain on the passenger seat visible through the window. It didn't match her blazer, and for some reason, that made Joseph like her more. She turned to face him. "Thanks for not running when I walked in." Joseph swallowed. "Thanks for walking in." Her smile softened. For a second he thought she might step closer. Instead, she just nodded, like she was saving something. "I had a good time, Joseph." "Me too." She opened her car door, paused. "If Kevin asks, tell him it wasn't a joke." "What should I tell him it was?" Rebecca met his eyes. "Coffee. Just coffee." Then she got in and drove away, her taillights disappearing down the road that wrapped around the lake. Joseph stood there longer than he should have, hands in his pockets, feeling the cold air on his face. It took him a full minute to realize something. His phone was still in his hand. He didn't have her number. And for the first time in 3 years, he cared enough to feel stupid about it. He picked up Cynthia at 5:03, apologized to Mrs. Patterson for being late. Cynthia bounced into the hallway, already talking. "Did you have coffee with the lady?" Joseph helped her into her jacket. "I did." "Was she nice?" "She was." "Is she going to be my new mom?" Joseph crouched down, eye level with his daughter. "No, sweetheart. It was just coffee." Cynthia studied his face with the kind of scrutiny only a 7-year-old could manage. "You're smiling." "I'm allowed to smile." "You don't smile a lot." That landed harder than it should have. Joseph stood up, took her hand. "Come on. Let's go home." They walked to the car, Cynthia chattering about her afternoon with Mrs. Patterson, the cookies they baked, the movie they watched. Joseph listened, half his brain still at Lakeview Coffee, replaying Rebecca's voice, the way she said his name, the way she didn't apologize for Michelle. At home, he made dinner. Chicken stir-fry, Cynthia's favorite. She set the table without being asked. 2 plates, 2 forks, 2 glasses of water. They ate together, Cynthia telling him about a drawing she wanted to make, something about a lady with no smile. Joseph asked what she meant. Cynthia shrugged, already moving on to the next thought. After dinner he washed dishes while Cynthia drew at the kitchen table. He glanced over his shoulder. She'd pulled up a photo on his tablet, some picture from the company website. Rebecca's headshot. Professional, serious, no smile. Cynthia sketched with fierce concentration, her tongue poking out the side of her mouth. She used sharp lines, gray and black, no color. The woman in the drawing wore a suit, her face angular, her expression neutral. Cynthia titled it at the top in careful letters, "Lady with no smile." Joseph dried his hands on a towel. "That's really good, sweetheart." Cynthia looked up, proud. "It's the lady from your phone." "How'd you find her picture?" "I looked up your work on the tablet. She's the new boss, right?" Joseph sat down beside her. "Right. She looks serious." "She's a CEO. They're supposed to look serious." Cynthia tilted her head, considering this. "Do you think she smiles when nobody's looking?" The question caught him off guard. He studied the drawing, the precise lines, the absence of warmth. Then he thought about Rebecca laughing in the coffee shop, covering her mouth with her hand, her eyes crinkling at the corners. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I think she does." Cynthia nodded, satisfied, and went back to adding details. Joseph watched her work, thinking about the gap between who people were in public and who they were when the armor came off. Thinking about Rebecca's voice when she talked about her father, the way it got quieter, tighter. Thinking about the way she leaned forward when he mentioned Cynthia, like she was trying to understand something she didn't have context for yet. His phone buzzed. Kevin's name lit up the screen. "So, Lone Wolf, how bad was it?" Joseph stared at the message, thumb hovering. He typed back. "It wasn't bad," Kevin replied immediately. "That's not an answer. Details." Joseph set the phone face down on the table. He didn't have details, not the kind Kevin wanted. All he had was the feeling that something had started, and if he wasn't careful, he'd mess it up before it even had a chance to become real. Monday morning, Joseph arrived at the office at 7:45 a.m. He dropped his messenger bag at his desk, logged into his computer, pulled up the merger files he'd been reviewing. The numbers still bothered him. Duplicate vendor payments, shell companies, routing numbers that repeated in patterns too clean to be random. He opened a new spreadsheet, started cross-referencing transaction dates with approval signatures. By 9 a.m., he had a list. 8 months of payments, all routed to the same 3 shell companies, all approved by the same person. CFO Ryan Robinson. Total amount, $847,000. Joseph sat back in his chair staring at the screen. This wasn't accounting errors. This was theft. He drafted an email to Rebecca, kept it professional, factual. Found irregularities in merger vendor payments. Need to discuss. Available today? He hit send before he could overthink it. Her reply came back 6 minutes later. My office, 4 p.m. Joseph spent the rest of the day trying to focus on his regular work, failing. At 3:55, he grabbed his laptop, took the elevator to the executive floor. Rebecca's assistant Natalie waved him through. He knocked on the door frame. Rebecca looked up from her desk, gestured him inside. She wore a charcoal suit, hair pulled back, reading glasses perched on her nose, the professional version of the woman from yesterday. She closed her laptop. "Show me." Joseph set his laptop on her desk, turned the screen toward her, walked her through the spreadsheet. Transaction dates, vendor names, routing numbers, approval signatures. Every line pointed back to Ryan. Rebecca's expression didn't change, but her jaw tightened. She scrolled through the data, clicked on a few cells, cross-referenced with her own files. The silence stretched for 2 full minutes. Then she looked up. "This stays between us until I verify with an external audit." Joseph nodded. "Understood. My father's on the board. Ryan was his choice for CFO. If this blows up the wrong way, it takes me down too." "I get it." She studied him, her gaze sharp. "You could have gone straight to the police. I work for you. You should see it first." Rebecca's expression softened slightly. "Thank you." Joseph picked up his laptop. "Let me know if you need anything else." He turned to leave. Her voice stopped him. "Joseph." He looked back. "Coffee was good." He smiled. "Yeah, it was." Thursday night, Rebecca texted him. A number he didn't recognize. A message that read, "Natalie gave me your number. Hope that's okay. Dinner Saturday? I'd like to meet Cynthia." Joseph stared at his phone for 10 seconds, typed back, "She'd like that. 6 p.m. at my place?" Rebecca's reply came fast. "Perfect. I'll bring wine." Saturday arrived. Joseph cleaned the apartment, hid the clutter, vacuumed the living room twice. Cynthia watched from the couch, amused. "You're nervous." "I'm not nervous. You vacuumed twice." "The floor was dirty." Cynthia grinned. "You like her?" Joseph stopped, turned to face his daughter. "Is that okay?" She considered this seriously. "Is she nice?" "She is." "Does she like kids?" "I don't know yet. That's why she's coming over." Cynthia nodded. "Okay. But if she's mean to me, you have to tell her to leave." Joseph crouched down, took her hands. "Deal." Rebecca arrived at 6:02 holding a bottle of red wine and a bag of groceries. She'd traded the blazer for a soft gray sweater and jeans. Her hair was down, curling past her shoulders. She looked less like a CEO and more like someone who might actually relax. Cynthia answered the door before Joseph could. She stared up at Rebecca, sizing her up. "You're the lady with no smile." Rebecca blinked. "I'm sorry?" Joseph stepped in. "Cynthia drew your picture, from the website." Understanding crossed Rebecca's face. She crouched down to Cynthia's level. "I saw that picture. I don't like it very much. The photographer told me not to smile." Cynthia's eyes widened. "Why?" "Because he said serious people don't smile in work photos, but I think that's silly." Cynthia nodded, apparently satisfied. "Do you like spaghetti?" Rebecca smiled. "I love spaghetti." "Good, Daddy's making it." She grabbed Rebecca's hand, pulled her inside. Joseph watched his daughter lead this woman he barely knew into their kitchen, chattering about her drawings, her soccer team, the gap in her teeth that meant the tooth fairy had visited twice last month. Rebecca listened like Cynthia was the most interesting person she'd met all week. Dinner was easy. Spaghetti with marinara, garlic bread, salad that Cynthia picked at but didn't eat. Rebecca helped set the table, poured wine for herself and Joseph, water for Cynthia. They sat together, 3 plates instead of 2, the table feeling fuller than it had in years. Cynthia dominated the conversation, asking Rebecca questions rapid fire. "Do you have a dog?" "No." "Do you like soccer?" "I've never played." "Do you have kids?" "No." "Do you want kids?" Rebecca paused, glass halfway to her lips. She glanced at Joseph, then back at Cynthia. "I don't know. I never thought about it much." Cynthia frowned. "Why not?" "I was always too busy with work." "That's sad." Rebecca's smile was small, a little fragile. "Maybe." After dinner, Cynthia dragged Rebecca to her room to show her the collection of drawings taped to the walls. Joseph cleaned up the kitchen, listening to their voices through the open door. Cynthia explaining each picture, Rebecca asking questions, genuine interest in her tone. When they came back, Cynthia was holding Rebecca's hand. She looked up at Joseph. "Can Miss Rebecca read me a bedtime story?" Joseph glanced at Rebecca. She nodded. "I'd like that." They went through the routine. Cynthia brushed her teeth, changed into pajamas covered in stars, climbed into bed. Joseph handed Rebecca the worn copy of Where the Wild Things Are, the same book Michelle used to read. Rebecca sat on the edge of the bed, open to the first page. Her voice was tentative at first, unsure. She stumbled over the rhythm, missed the emphasis on certain words. Cynthia corrected her gently. "You have to make the monster voice scary." Rebecca tried again, deeper this time, exaggerated. Cynthia giggled. Joseph leaned against the doorframe, watching. Something in his chest loosened. Not sadness, not quite happiness, something in between. When the story ended, Cynthia yawned. Rebecca set the book on the nightstand. Cynthia looked up at her, sleepy but serious. "Miss Rebecca, do you have a family?" Rebecca's breath caught. She was quiet for a long moment. "Not yet." "Do you want one?" Rebecca's eyes went glassy. "I think so." Cynthia nodded, satisfied. "Okay. Good night." Rebecca stood, smoothed the blanket, whispered good night. Joseph kissed Cynthia's forehead, turned off the light. They stepped into the hallway, closed the door halfway. Rebecca leaned against the wall, exhaled slowly. "She's wonderful." Joseph's throat felt tight. "She is. I didn't know if I'd be good at that." "You were." Rebecca looked at him, something vulnerable in her expression. "I've never done this before. The whole domestic thing. Bedtime stories, family dinners. It's—" She stopped, searching for words. "Overwhelming?" "Terrifying," she admitted. "And also the best part of my week." Joseph stepped closer. Not enough to crowd her, just enough to close the distance. "You don't have to be perfect at it." "I want to be. For her. For you." His hand found hers. Their fingers laced together, easy and natural. "You're doing fine." They stood there in the hallway, the apartment quiet except for the hum of the refrigerator, the distant sound of traffic outside. Rebecca's thumb traced circles on the back of his hand. Joseph thought about the gap between Sunday coffee and this moment, how fast things had moved, how right it felt anyway. Rebecca's voice was soft. "I should go. It's late." Joseph didn't let go of her hand. "Or you could stay, just to talk. Cynthia's asleep." Rebecca searched his face, then nodded. They moved to the couch, sat closer than necessary. Joseph poured the rest of the wine. Rebecca kicked off her shoes, tucked her feet under her. They talked until midnight. About Michelle, about the grief that didn't disappear, just changed shape. About Ryan, about the engagement that ended because she refused to shrink herself. About Donald, about the father who loved her but didn't understand her. At some point, Rebecca's head ended up on Joseph's shoulder. He didn't move, didn't want to break whatever this was. Her voice was drowsy when she spoke. "Joseph." "Yeah?" "I'm glad Kevin set us up." "Me too." She fell asleep there, her breathing evening out. Joseph sat still, watching the rise and fall of her shoulders, thinking about how 3 weeks ago he'd been alone, and now there was this woman on his couch, this possibility he hadn't asked for but couldn't imagine walking away from. Friday evening, the company threw an integration event. Hotel ballroom, open bar, executives in suits pretending to enjoy networking. Joseph went because Kevin insisted, wore the same navy button-down from the coffee date, nursed a beer by the windows. Rebecca was across the room talking to board members, her professional mask back in place. She caught his eye once, smiled briefly, then returned to the conversation. Joseph watched her navigate the room, confident and controlled, nothing like the woman who'd stumbled through a bedtime story last week. Ryan Robinson appeared beside him without warning. Platinum watch, tailored suit, champagne flute in hand. He didn't look at Joseph, just stared out the window. "Nice view." Joseph kept his voice neutral. "Yeah." Ryan took a sip, swirled the liquid. "You're Joseph Davis, data analytics." "That's right." "I hear you've been digging into the merger files." Joseph's grip tightened on his beer. "Just doing my job." Ryan turned to face him, smiled like they were sharing a joke. "Rebecca's interesting, isn't she? Smart, ambitious, little too serious for my taste, but some guys like that." Joseph didn't respond. Ryan's smile widened. "I heard you two had coffee. Then dinner. Small company. People talk." "Is there a point to this?" Ryan leaned in slightly, voice dropping. "Just surprised, that's all. Didn't know Rebecca was into the charity case types. The words landed like a slap. Joseph set his beer down carefully, turned to face Ryan directly. His voice was quiet, controlled. "I'm standing right here." Ryan's expression didn't change. "I know." Joseph held his gaze. "I have dignity. I deserve respect. If you can't manage that, we're done here." He walked away before Ryan could respond, headed for the exit. Rebecca intercepted him in the hallway, her heels clicking on marble. "What happened?" Joseph shook his head. "Nothing. I need some air." She followed him to the parking garage. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting harsh shadows. Joseph leaned against his car, exhaled slowly. Rebecca stood in front of him, arms crossed. "Ryan said something." "It doesn't matter." "Joseph." He met her eyes. "He called me a charity case, implied you were making some kind of statement by dating me." Rebecca's jaw tightened. Anger flashed across her face, quick and sharp. "That's not—" "I know it's not." Joseph's voice was firm. "But I need you to know something. I won't be anyone's diversity hire story. I won't be the guy you parade around to prove you're progressive. I do my job because I'm good at it. If we're doing this," he gestured between them, "it's because we want to, not because it makes you look open-minded." Rebecca stepped closer, her voice steady. "I don't want you because of what it looks like. I want you because when I'm with you, I remember what it feels like to be human instead of a resume." Joseph's anger softened. "Okay. Okay. Okay." She reached for his hand. "Ryan's an asshole. Ignore him." Joseph laced his fingers with hers. "Already forgotten." They stood there in the concrete silence, the hum of distant traffic filtering through the garage. Rebecca squeezed his hand once. "I need to get back. Board members to schmooze." "Go. I'll see you tomorrow." She hesitated, then stood on her toes, kissed his cheek. Quick, soft. Then she was walking back toward the elevator, heels echoing, leaving him alone with the fading warmth on his skin. Joseph drove home, picked up Cynthia from Mrs. Patterson's, carried his half-asleep daughter to her bed. He sat on the edge of her mattress, watching her breathe. 7 years old, heart murmur, gap-toothed smile, the entire center of his world. His phone buzzed, email notification. He opened it, expecting spam. Instead, it was from his personal account, sent to himself. Attached, the spreadsheet he'd compiled, the one with Ryan's embezzlement trail. He'd backed it up over the weekend just in case. He closed the phone, stared at the ceiling. Monday, he'd talk to Rebecca. They'd figure out next steps. External audit, legal review, whatever it took to do this right. But tonight, he just sat with his daughter, listening to her breathe, thinking about dignity and choices and the cost of doing what was right even when it was hard. Monday morning, Joseph sent the email at 7:52 a.m. Subject line, "Merger data, urgent." Body, 3 sentences and an attachment. Rebecca's reply came back at 8:04. "My office. Now." He took the stairs instead of the elevator, needing the extra minute to organize his thoughts. The executive floor smelled different up here, like expensive cologne and decisions that affected hundreds of lives. Rebecca's door was open. She gestured him inside, closed it behind him. Her desk was covered in printouts. The same spreadsheets he'd sent, marked up in red pen, post-it notes flagging specific transactions. She'd been working on this since he sent it. Her eyes had that tight look people get when they haven't slept enough. She sat down, motioned for him to do the same. "I ran preliminary checks over the weekend. Cross-referenced with our internal records. It's worse than you thought." Joseph's stomach dropped. How much worse? $847,000 was just the merger period. If this pattern holds, Ryan's been doing this for at least 18 months. Could be over $2 million total. The number hung in the air between them. Joseph thought about Ryan's platinum watch, his tailored suits, the champagne at the integration event. All bought with stolen money, while people on the 3rd floor worked overtime just to make rent. Rebecca rubbed her temples. I need to bring in an external auditor, someone the board can't claim is biased. But that takes time. Contracts, NDAs, background checks, minimum 2 weeks. What do I do until then? Nothing. You keep working your regular assignments. You don't mention this to anyone. Not Kevin, not your team lead, nobody. Her voice was firm, leaving no room for argument. If Ryan suspects we're investigating, he'll destroy evidence. We get one shot at this. Joseph nodded. Understood. She looked at him for a long moment, something shifting in her expression. I'm asking you to trust me, to sit on this while I build the case properly. That's not fair to you. I do trust you. Even though my father hired Ryan, even though exposing this could blow back on me? Joseph leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Especially because of that. You could have buried this, protected your position. You didn't. Rebecca's shoulders relaxed slightly. Thank you. He stood to leave, paused at the door. Rebecca. She looked up. We're doing the right thing. Her smile was small, tired. I hope so. The next 2 weeks moved like water through sand, slow, grinding, every day feeling like 3. Joseph worked his normal assignments, analyzed data sets, attended team meetings, pretended everything was fine. Kevin asked him twice if something was wrong. Joseph lied both times. Nights were different. Rebecca started coming over after Cynthia went to bed, bringing her laptop, working through audit documents while Joseph reviewed vendor contracts. They'd sit at his kitchen table, surrounded by papers, drinking coffee that was too strong and too late. Sometimes they talked. Sometimes they just worked in comfortable silence. Thursday night, 2 weeks after the integration event, Rebecca closed her laptop with more force than necessary. The auditor confirmed it. $2.1 million over 22 months. Shell companies in Delaware and Nevada. Ryan's signature on every approval. Joseph set down his pen. What's next? I present to the board. Emergency session. Lay out the evidence. Recommend termination and criminal charges. She paused. My father's going to fight this. Ryan's his guy. Admitting Ryan's a thief means admitting Donald's judgment was wrong. You're sure he'll fight it? Rebecca's laugh was bitter. You don't know my father. He'd rather protect the status quo than admit a mistake. Joseph reached across the table, took her hand. Then we make the evidence so airtight he can't ignore it. She squeezed his fingers. That's the plan. Saturday morning, Joseph took Cynthia to her soccer game. She played forward, scored twice, ran herself breathless. Afterward, they stopped for ice cream, sat on a bench by the lake. Cynthia swung her legs, chocolate coating her upper lip. She looked at him sideways. Is Miss Rebecca your girlfriend? Joseph wiped chocolate off her face with a napkin. Why do you ask? She's here a lot. She reads me stories. She knows how I like my pancakes. How do you feel about that? Cynthia considered this seriously. I like her. She's not like Mommy, but that's okay. Mommy was Mommy. Miss Rebecca is Miss Rebecca. Joseph's throat tightened. His 7-year-old daughter had just articulated what he'd been struggling to understand for weeks. You're pretty smart, you know that? She grinned, gap-toothed and proud. I know. That night, Rebecca came over for dinner. Cynthia helped make spaghetti again, measuring sauce with intense focus. They ate together, the 3 of them, conversation easy and warm. After Cynthia brushed her teeth, she brought Rebecca 3 books instead of 1. Rebecca raised an eyebrow. 3? Cynthia nodded firmly. You're getting better at the voices. You need practice. Joseph watched from the doorway as Rebecca read all 3, doing different voices for each character, making Cynthia giggle. When his daughter finally fell asleep, Rebecca stayed sitting on the edge of the bed for a long moment, just watching her breathe. In the hallway, she leaned against the wall. I never thought I'd be good at this. The kid stuff. Joseph stepped closer. You're better than good. I don't know what I'm doing half the time. Neither do I. That's called parenting. She looked up at him, something vulnerable in her eyes. What if I mess this up? What if I'm not? He kissed her, soft, slow, deliberate. When he pulled back, his forehead rested against hers. "You're not going to mess this up." Her hands found his chest, fingers curling into his shirt. "Say that again." "You're not going to mess this up. We're not going to mess this up." She kissed him back, deeper this time. They stood there in the narrow hallway, the rest of the world falling away. When they finally broke apart, Rebecca's smile was genuine, unguarded. "I should go. Early meeting tomorrow." Joseph walked her to the door. She paused on the threshold, turned back. "Joseph." "Yeah?" Her voice was quiet, almost fragile. "I think I'm falling in love with you." His heart did something complicated. "Look at me when you say it." She met his eyes. "I'm falling in love with you." He pulled her close, kissed the top of her head. "Good. Because I'm already there." She left smiling. Joseph closed the door, leaned against it, feeling like his chest might crack open from the pressure of wanting this to work. Tuesday afternoon, 1:47 p.m. Joseph was in a budget review meeting when his phone vibrated. School nurse. He excused himself, stepped into the hallway, answered. The nurse's voice was calm but urgent. "Mr. Davis, Cynthia collapsed during recess. We've called an ambulance. They're taking her to Memorial Hospital." Everything else stopped. "Is she breathing?" "Yes, she's conscious, but her heart rate is irregular. The paramedics are with her now." Joseph was already moving, grabbing his jacket, his keys. "I'm on my way." He drove 15 miles in 12 minutes, parked illegally, ran through the emergency room doors. A nurse directed him to Bay 7. Cynthia was on a gurney, oxygen mask over her face, EKG leads attached to her chest. Her eyes found his and filled with tears. He took her hand, squeezed gently. "Hey, sweetheart, I'm here." She tried to talk through the mask. He couldn't make out the words, but the fear in her voice was clear. A doctor appeared, young, efficient. "Mr. Davis, I'm Dr. Patel. We're running tests now. Her heart rhythm is unstable. We need to keep her for observation." Joseph nodded, not trusting his voice. They moved Cynthia to a private room. Joseph sat beside her bed, holding her hand while machines beeped and whirred. She fell asleep around 4, exhausted from crying. He stayed awake, watching the monitor, every irregular blip making his chest constrict. His phone buzzed. "Rebecca." "Where are you? Missed our 3 p.m. check-in." He typed back one-handed. "Hospital. Cynthia collapsed. Heart issue." Her reply came fast. "Which hospital?" "Memorial. ER. Now room 412. On my way." She arrived 40 minutes later, still in her work blazer, slightly out of breath. She stopped in the doorway, took in the scene. Cynthia asleep, Joseph holding her hand, monitors displaying numbers he didn't fully understand. Rebecca set her bag down quietly, pulled a chair beside his. She didn't ask questions, just sat there, her hand finding his free one, lacing their fingers together. They stayed like that for 20 minutes before either of them spoke. Joseph's voice was rough. "They don't know what caused it. Running tests." Rebecca squeezed his hand. "She's strong. She's 7. She's your daughter. That makes her strong." At 6, Dr. Patel returned with a cardiologist. Dr. Sarah Chen, mid-40s, kind eyes. She pulled up Cynthia's chart on a tablet, showed them the echocardiogram results. Mitral valve prolapse with moderate regurgitation. The valve isn't closing properly, causing blood to flow backward. That's what triggered the episode today. Joseph's medical knowledge was limited, but he understood enough to know this was serious. "What does she need?" "Doctor." Chen's expression was gentle but direct. "Surgical repair. We need to fix the valve before it progresses to severe regurgitation. The window is about 6 months. After that, the risk increases significantly." The number hit him like a physical blow. "How much?" "The surgery itself is around $180,000. Your insurance will cover a portion, but you're looking at roughly $60,000 out of pocket." Joseph did the math in his head. His savings account had $8,000. He could maybe scrape together another $5,000 if he sold everything non-essential. That left $47,000 he didn't have and no way to get it. Dr. Chen continued. We can discuss payment plans, financial assistance programs. The hospital has resources. I'll figure it out. His voice sounded foreign to his own ears. When does she need the surgery? Ideally within 3 months. We'll monitor her closely until then. Keep her on beta blockers, limit strenuous activity. They discussed medications, follow-up appointments, warning signs to watch for. Joseph absorbed it all, his brain switching to problem-solving mode because the alternative was panic. When Dr. Chen left, he sat back down, put his head in his hands. Rebecca's voice was quiet. Joseph. He didn't look up. I'll handle it. Let me help. No. Joseph. He lifted his head, met her eyes. I appreciate it, but this is my daughter, my responsibility. Rebecca's expression tightened. I'm not offering charity. I'm offering to help someone I care about. I know, and I can't accept. They stared at each other. Rebecca looked like she wanted to argue, but something in his face stopped her. She nodded once, lips pressed thin. Okay. Cynthia woke up around 7, groggy and disoriented. She saw Rebecca, managed a small smile. You came. Rebecca moved to the other side of the bed. Of course I came. Am I sick? Joseph smoothed her hair back. Your heart's not working quite right, but the doctors are going to fix it. Cynthia's eyes widened. Surgery? Yeah, sweetheart. But not for a little while. You've got time. She processed this, fear flickering across her face. Then she looked at Rebecca. Will you be here? Rebecca's voice was steady. I'm not going anywhere. They kept Cynthia overnight for observation. Joseph stayed in the room, sleeping in the chair beside her bed. Rebecca left around 9, promising to come back in the morning. She kept that promise, showing up at 7 with coffee and breakfast sandwiches. They released Cynthia at noon with prescriptions and strict instructions. No soccer, no running, no activities that elevated her heart rate. Joseph watched his daughter's face crumple when Dr. Chen explained she couldn't play for the rest of the season. She didn't cry, just nodded, her jaw set in that stubborn way she got from Michelle. The drive home was quiet. Joseph carried Cynthia inside, settled her on the couch with blankets and her favorite stuffed elephant. He made soup, brought it to her on a tray. She ate 3 bites, said she wasn't hungry. Rebecca stayed through dinner, helped clean up, sat with Cynthia while Joseph did dishes. When he came back to the living room, they were looking at picture books, Rebecca reading softly. Cynthia's head rested on her shoulder, eyes half closed. That night, after Cynthia fell asleep, Joseph walked Rebecca to her car. The October air had turned cold, frost forming on windshields. Rebecca hugged herself against the chill. You're going to need help with this. I'll figure it out. Joseph, $60,000. I said I'll figure it out. Her frustration was visible. Why won't you let me in? Because I have dignity. The words came out sharper than he intended. I deserve respect, and part of that is handling my own problems. Rebecca's eyes flashed. This isn't about dignity. This is about pride. Maybe, but it's my pride, my choice. She stared at him, anger and concern warring on her face. Then she got in her car without another word, drove away with her taillights cutting through the dark. Joseph stood in the cold, wondering if he'd just made a terrible mistake. Monday morning, the parking garage was nearly empty at 7:15. Joseph was halfway to the elevator when footsteps echoed behind him. He turned. Ryan Robinson, expensive coat over his suit, platinum watch catching the fluorescent lights. Ryan stopped 5 feet away, hands in his pockets. Heard about your daughter. Tough break. Joseph's jaw tightened. Thanks. Heart surgery's expensive. Insurance never covers what they say they will. Ryan's voice was casual, conversational. I have a friend, cardiothoracic surgeon, best in the region. Could get Cynthia in next month, bump her to the top of the list. Joseph's instincts screamed warning. That's generous. I believe in helping colleagues when they're struggling. Ryan pulled out his phone, scrolled through contacts. He owes me a favor. One call, your daughter's scheduled within 2 weeks. Surgery covered, payment plan figured out. All of it. What do you want in return? Ryan's smile was practiced, empty. Just need one thing. Whatever you think you found in those merger files? Drop it. It's accounting errors. Happens in every acquisition. Not worth the stress. The pieces clicked into place. Ryan knew. He'd known the whole time that Joseph was digging, that Rebecca was building a case. This wasn't generosity. It was a bribe wrapped in concern. Joseph took a step back. It's $847,000 in stolen funds. Minimum. Ryan's expression didn't change. It's interpretation. And right now, you need to think about what matters. Your daughter's life or corporate politics that don't affect you. Every fiber of Joseph's being wanted to take the deal. Wanted to say yes, get Cynthia the surgery, figure out the ethics later. He thought about her gap-toothed smile, her drawings taped to the walls, the way she corrected Rebecca's bedtime story voices. He thought about what he'd tell her when she was old enough to understand. How he'd explain that Daddy took a bribe to save her life. How he'd teach her to do the right thing when he'd chosen the easy thing. His voice came out quiet but firm. I have dignity. I deserve respect. And my daughter deserves a father who teaches her that doing the right thing matters more than doing the easy thing. Ryan's smile faded. You're making a mistake. Maybe, but it's my mistake to make. You think Rebecca's going to protect you? She's protecting herself. The moment this gets messy, she'll throw you under the bus to save her position. Joseph met his eyes. We're done here. He walked to the elevator, pressed the button, didn't look back. His hands shook as the doors closed. He'd just turned down his daughter's surgery. Refused help because accepting it meant compromising everything he'd taught Cynthia about character and choices. He made it to his desk, sat down, put his head in his hands. Kevin appeared 2 minutes later, coffee in hand. You okay? Joseph looked up. No, but I will be. Wednesday morning brought the emergency board meeting. Rebecca had called it for 10 a.m., given the board 72 hours notice as required by bylaws. Joseph wasn't invited. He sat at his desk, trying to focus on quarterly reports, checking his phone every 3 minutes. At 11:30, his email dinged. From Rebecca Sanchez. Subject, suspended pending investigation. His stomach dropped. He opened it. Mr. Davis, effective immediately. You are suspended with pay pending completion of an internal investigation into financial irregularities. You are to vacate the premises by end of business today and surrender your access credentials. HR will contact you regarding next steps. The words blurred. He read it again, then a third time. Suspended. Investigation. Financial irregularities. Ryan had flipped the script. Somehow he'd presented evidence first, framed Joseph as the thief, and Rebecca had let it happen. Kevin appeared at his desk, face pale. Joe, what the hell is going on? Ryan just told the whole executive team you've been embezzling funds. Joseph stood on autopilot, started packing his messenger bag, laptop, notebooks, the photo of Cynthia he kept by his monitor. It's complicated. Complicated? They're saying you created fake vendor accounts, that you stole almost $1 million. I didn't. I know you didn't. But they're saying Rebecca found the evidence, that she reported you. That stopped him cold. Rebecca reported me? Kevin nodded. Board meeting this morning. She presented doctored emails, transaction records, all pointing to you. Joseph's hands went numb. He'd trusted her, given her the evidence, waited while she built the case, believed she was on his side, and she'd used it to bury him instead. He finished packing, walked to HR, surrendered his badge. The woman behind the desk wouldn't meet his eyes. He left the building at noon, drove home in a fog. His phone rang 6 times during the drive. Rebecca's name on the screen. He let it go to voicemail every time. At home, he sat on the couch, staring at nothing. Cynthia was at school, wouldn't be back until 3. He had 3 hours to figure out how to explain that Daddy lost his job, that they had no money for surgery, that the woman they'd both started to trust had betrayed them. His phone buzzed. Text from Rebecca. "Please let me explain." He turned the phone off. Thursday passed in a blur. Joseph called every contact he had, looking for work. Nobody was hiring mid-level analysts with pending fraud investigations. Friday was worse. His bank account showed 2 weeks of pay, then nothing. The mortgage was due in 12 days. Cynthia asked where Miss Rebecca was. Joseph said she was busy with work. Cynthia didn't push, but her eyes held questions she was too young to articulate. Saturday morning the doorbell rang. Joseph opened it to find Donald Thomas on his doorstep. Tailored coat, silver hair, the kind of presence that came from decades of making decisions that affected thousands. Donald's voice was formal, careful. "Mr. Davis, may I come in?" Joseph stepped aside. Donald entered, looked around the small apartment like he was cataloging its contents. 2-bedroom rental, second-hand furniture, Cynthia's drawings covering one wall. He sat on the couch without being invited. Joseph remained standing. "What do you want?" Donald folded his hands. "I need to understand what happened. You're accused of embezzling over $2 million across 22 months. The evidence is substantial. The evidence is fabricated. Can you prove that?" Joseph's laugh was hollow. "The man who framed me controls all the documentation. So no, I can't prove it." Donald studied him. "Rebecca believes you're innocent." That caught Joseph off guard. "Rebecca reported me to the board. She was forced to. Ryan presented her with what appeared to be conclusive evidence. If she'd refused to act, she would have been accused of covering for you. She had no choice." "Everyone has choices?" Donald's expression shifted slightly. "She came to my house Thursday night, told me everything. The real evidence you found, Ryan's embezzlement, her investigation. She said you refused Ryan's bribe even though it would have paid for your daughter's surgery." Joseph's throat tightened. He didn't respond. Donald stood, walked to the wall of drawings, studied them the way someone examines art in a museum. "My daughter has never fought for anything the way she's fighting for you. She's risking her career, her reputation, her relationship with me, all because she believes you're innocent." "And what do you believe?" Donald turned to face him. "I believe Ryan Robinson is a liar and a thief. I believe I made a mistake trusting him. And I believe my daughter is in love with a man who has more integrity than most of the board combined." The words sat heavy in the room. Joseph crossed his arms. "What happens now?" "Rebecca's bringing in the external auditor. They've found the original evidence you compiled, backups that Ryan didn't know existed. The board meets again Tuesday. This time, we'll have the truth." "And if the board doesn't care about the truth?" Donald's smile was grim. "Then my daughter and I will both be looking for new jobs." He moved toward the door, paused. "She asked me to tell you something. She said, I should have stood with you from the start. I'm standing now." Donald left. Joseph closed the door, leaned against it. His phone was still off. He turned it on. 43 missed calls. 37 from Rebecca. The rest from Kevin. He listened to the first voicemail. Rebecca's voice was strained. "Joseph, please call me back. I know how this looks. I know you think I betrayed you, but I didn't. I couldn't defend you without evidence, and Ryan moved faster than we expected. I'm fixing this. Please trust me." The second voicemail was shorter. "I'm not giving up on us. I'm not giving up on you." The third was just breathing. Then a whispered, "I love you." Joseph sat on the floor, phone pressed to his ear, listening to her voice break. He thought about the past 3 weeks, the bedtime stories, the way she looked at Cynthia like she was learning a language she'd never spoken, the way she held his hand in the hospital. He thought about what Donald said. "She's fighting for you, risking everything." He called her back. She answered on the first ring. "Joseph." Her voice cracked on his name. He closed his eyes. "I'm here." I'm so sorry. I should have told you what Ryan was planning. I should have... Stop. His voice was gentle. Donald came by. He explained. Silence. Then a shaky exhale. Can I see you? Where are you? In my car. Outside your building. He looked out the window. Her gray Subaru sat 3 spaces down, headlights off. Come up. 2 minutes later she was at his door. Hair pulled back messy, no makeup, wearing jeans and a sweatshirt he'd never seen before. She looked smaller somehow. Vulnerable. They stood in the doorway, 3 feet of space between them that felt like miles. Rebecca's eyes were red. I thought I was protecting you by keeping distance. Thought if I didn't defend you publicly, Ryan wouldn't target you harder. I was wrong. Joseph stepped closer. You were in an impossible position. I chose wrong anyway. I should have stood beside you in that board meeting. Consequences be damned. You're standing now. Her breath hitched. I don't want this to be an act anymore. I don't want to choose between my career and you. I choose you. Joseph closed the distance, pulled her against him. She buried her face in his chest, her hands fisting in his shirt. They stood there holding each other. 2 people who'd been alone too long, finally letting someone in. When they pulled apart, Rebecca's voice was steady. Tuesday's board meeting. We present the real evidence. Kevin found server backups Ryan didn't delete, transaction trails, digital signatures, time-stamped approvals, all pointing back to him. What if the board doesn't care? Then I resign, and we figure out what's next together. Joseph searched her face. You'd walk away from your company? It's not my company if it protects thieves over truth. She paused. I can rebuild a career. I can't rebuild this. He kissed her forehead. We're going to be okay. Say that again. We're going to be okay. She nodded, almost believing it. They moved to the couch, sat close. Rebecca's head on his shoulder, his arm around her. Outside, the sun set behind clouds, painting the sky in shades of gray and orange. Rebecca's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then showed him. Text from Natalie. Cynthia sent you something. Check your email. Rebecca opened her email. Attachment from an address Joseph recognized as the school's art program. She clicked it. A scanned drawing filled the screen. Cynthia had drawn Rebecca in a cape, flying above buildings, the R logo on her chest. Below, a cityscape with tiny people looking up. At the bottom, in careful 7-year-old handwriting, Are you fighting bad guys? Daddy says you are. Are you winning? Love, Cynthia. Rebecca stared at the screen, her eyes filling. She drew this? Joseph's throat felt tight. She thinks you're a superhero. Rebecca's hand covered her mouth. Tears spilled over. I don't deserve that. Yeah, you do. She turned the phone off, set it aside, looked at Joseph with something fierce in her expression. I'm going to win. For her. For you. For us. I know you will. They sat in the growing dark, planning their next move. Kevin would testify about the server backups. The external auditor would present the forensic evidence. Rebecca would walk the board through every transaction, every forged signature, every lie Ryan had built. Sunday, they prepared. Kevin came over with his laptop, showed them the recovered files. Emails Ryan thought he'd deleted. Transaction logs showing the real approval chain. Digital breadcrumbs that painted a picture so clear even Donald couldn't ignore it. Cynthia helped in her own way, bringing them snacks, asking questions about what they were doing. Are you building a case? Her vocabulary came from too many crime shows. Rebecca smiled. Something like that. Are you going to win? We're going to try really hard. Cynthia nodded, satisfied. She climbed into Rebecca's lap, unexpected and natural. Rebecca's arms came around her automatically. They sat like that while Joseph and Kevin worked, a family that hadn't existed 3 months ago but felt inevitable now. Monday night, Joseph couldn't sleep. He lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, running through tomorrow's meeting in his head. All the ways it could go wrong, all the ways they could lose. His phone buzzed. Rebecca. "You awake?" He called her. Her voice sounded as wired as he felt. "Can't stop thinking about tomorrow." "Me neither." "What if we lose?" Joseph was quiet for a moment. "Then we lose. But we lose knowing we told the truth. That's not very comforting." "No, but it's honest." She laughed softly. "I love you." The words still hit him like the first time. "I love you too." "Joseph." "Yeah?" "Whatever happens tomorrow, we're in this together." "Together," he agreed. They stayed on the phone until Rebecca's breathing evened out, until she fell asleep with the line still connected. Joseph listened to her breathe, thinking about how far they'd come from that coffee shop, how much they'd risked, how much more they stood to lose, but also how much they'd already won. Cynthia had someone who read her bedtime stories. Rebecca had a family. Joseph had someone who chose him, not despite his responsibilities, but because of them. Tuesday morning would come whether he was ready or not. The board would vote. Ryan would face justice or get away with everything. Their future would be decided by 12 people in a room. But right now, in the dark, with Rebecca's breathing in his ear and his daughter asleep down the hall, Joseph had everything that mattered. The rest was just details. He closed his eyes, tried to sleep, failed. Gave up at 5 a.m., made coffee, sat at the kitchen table with the sunrise painting his walls orange and gold. At 7, he woke Cynthia, made breakfast, dropped her at school. At 8, he put on his navy button-down, the same one from the coffee date. At 9, Kevin picked him up. They drove to the office building in silence. At 9:45, they stood outside the boardroom. Rebecca was already inside. Through the glass, Joseph could see her setting up the projector, organizing papers, her movements precise and controlled. Kevin squeezed his shoulder. "You ready?" Joseph thought about Cynthia's drawing, Rebecca in a cape, fighting bad guys. He thought about his daughter asking if they were winning. He met Kevin's eyes. "Yeah, I'm ready." They walked into the room together. The boardroom held 12 people and enough tension to choke on. Joseph sat in a chair against the back wall, technically present but not permitted to speak unless directly addressed. Kevin sat beside him, laptop open, files ready. The board members occupied their usual seats around the mahogany table, faces ranging from curious to hostile. Ryan Robinson sat at the head, fingers steepled, platinum watch catching the overhead lights. His expression was calm, controlled, the face of a man who'd already won. Donald Thomas occupied the seat to Ryan's left. His daughter stood at the projector, connecting her laptop with hands that didn't shake. Rebecca wore a charcoal suit, hair pulled back severe, every inch the CEO. She looked at Joseph once, brief and steady, then turned to face the board. Donald called the meeting to order at exactly 10 a.m. His voice carried the weight of 3 decades on corporate boards. "This emergency session has been called to address serious allegations. Ms. Sanchez, you have the floor." Rebecca advanced the first slide. Transaction records highlighted in red. 3 weeks ago, Mr. Joseph Davis brought irregularities to my attention. Duplicate vendor payments during the merger period. I authorized an external audit. What we found goes beyond the initial $847,000. She clicked to the next slide, a timeline spanning 22 months, each entry marked with dates, amounts, routing numbers. CFO Ryan Robinson has systematically embezzled $2.1 million through shell companies registered in Delaware and Nevada. Every transaction bears his digital signature. Ryan's expression didn't change. He leaned back in his chair, the picture of unconcerned authority. These allegations are based on fabricated evidence provided by a disgruntled employee who's currently under investigation for the same crimes. Rebecca's jaw tightened. Mr. Davis discovered the theft. He reported it through proper channels. Your response was to frame him. One of the board members, A woman in her 60s named Margaret Chen raised her hand. "Ms. Sanchez, you presented evidence 2 weeks ago that implicated Mr. Davis. Are you now saying that evidence was false?" "I'm saying it was doctored." Ryan presented emails and transaction logs that appeared legitimate. I had no choice but to act on them pending further investigation. Ryan leaned forward, his voice reasonable, patient. "This is exactly what we discussed. Ms. Sanchez has become personally involved with Mr. Davis. Her judgment is compromised. She's trying to protect someone she's sleeping with." The room went silent. Joseph's hands curled into fists. Kevin's laptop screen reflected the tightness in his jaw. Rebecca's voice cut through the tension like a blade. "My personal life is irrelevant to this investigation. The evidence speaks for itself." She advanced the slides, email chains showing Ryan's communications with shell company representatives, bank statements with matching routing numbers, digital timestamps that proved the sequence of transactions, every piece meticulously documented, cross-referenced, verified. Donald studied the slides with the concentration of someone reading a contract before signing. Margaret took notes. 2 other board members whispered to each other. Ryan stood abruptly. "This is absurd. I'm the CFO. I've overseen this company's finances for 6 years. My record is impeccable." Rebecca met his eyes. "Your record shows a pattern of small-scale embezzlement starting 18 months after you were hired. You got careless during the merger because the volume of transactions provided cover. Prove it." Kevin stood, surprising everyone. He walked to the projector, USB drive in hand. "May I?" Rebecca nodded. Kevin plugged in the drive, pulled up a file directory. "I'm IT. I manage server backups." Ryan deleted emails from his account 3 days after Joseph reported the irregularities. "But our servers auto-save every 6 hours. He forgot that." The screen filled with email chains. Ryan's correspondence with vendors that didn't exist. Instructions to route payments through specific accounts. Confirmations of received funds. Every message damning, irrefutable. Ryan's calm cracked. "Those are fabricated. Anyone with IT access could create fake emails." Kevin's voice was steady, factual. "Server logs show these emails were sent from your terminal, using your credentials, during hours when security footage shows you were the only person in your office. I can provide the surveillance tapes." Margaret looked at Ryan. "Mr. Robinson, these are serious allegations. Do you have any explanation for these transactions?" Ryan's hands gripped the edge of the table. "This is a setup. Davis and Sanchez are working together to remove me because I discovered their relationship. This is retaliation." Donald's voice cut through. "Explain the shell companies." "I don't know anything about shell companies." "Explain the routing numbers that match your personal account transactions." Ryan's face flushed. "I want my lawyer present before I answer any more questions." Donald stood. "You're suspended effective immediately. Security will escort you from the building. The board will vote on termination and criminal referral after reviewing the complete evidence." 2 security guards appeared at the door like they'd been waiting for the cue. Ryan looked around the table, seeing the shift in every face. The realization hit him visibly. He'd lost. His eyes landed on Joseph. "You self-righteous bastard. You could have taken the deal. Your daughter could have had her surgery next week. Instead, you threw it away for what? Principles? She's going to die because you're too proud to take help." Joseph stood slowly. Every board member turned to look at him. His voice came out quiet, controlled, carrying to every corner of the room. "My daughter is going to grow up knowing her father chose integrity over convenience. That's worth more than any surgery you could have bought." Ryan laughed, bitter and sharp. "She's not going to grow up. She's going to die waiting for a surgery you can't afford." Rebecca stepped between them. "Get him out of here." Security moved in, took Ryan by the arms. He shrugged them off, walked to the door under his own power. At the threshold, he turned back. "You think you've won? You've destroyed yourselves. Nobody's going to hire either of you after this." Then he was gone. The door closed. Silence filled the space he'd occupied. Donald remained standing. The board will convene an executive session to vote on Mr. Robinson's termination and whether to refer this matter to law enforcement. Mr. Davis, Ms. Sanchez, you're dismissed. Joseph and Rebecca walked out together, Kevin trailing behind. The hallway felt too bright after the dim boardroom. Nobody spoke until they reached the elevator. Kevin broke the silence. Holy hell! Rebecca leaned against the wall, exhaled slowly. We did it. Joseph's hands were still shaking. What happens now? The board votes. If they terminate Ryan and file criminal charges, you're cleared. If they don't... She stopped. They will. The evidence is too strong. The elevator arrived. They rode down in silence, the only sound the mechanical hum of cables and pulleys. In the parking garage, Kevin excused himself, said he needed to get back to his desk. Joseph and Rebecca stood between their cars, the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. Rebecca's professional mask cracked. I'm sorry. What Ryan said about Cynthia. He's trying to get in my head. It's not going to work. But he's right. The surgery costs money you don't have. Joseph met her eyes. I'll figure it out. I always do. She stepped closer, her voice dropping. Let me help, please. I have savings. I can cover... No. Joseph, I said no. He softened his tone. I appreciate it, but this is something I need to handle myself. She studied his face, frustration and concern mixing in her expression. That's pride talking. Maybe, but it's my pride. And my daughter. Rebecca's phone buzzed. She glanced at it, then showed him. Text from Donald. Board voted 11-1. Ryan terminated. Criminal referral approved. You're reinstated effective immediately. The relief hit Joseph like a physical weight lifting. 11-1? Someone always votes against change on principle. Rebecca smiled, small but genuine. You're cleared. Your job is safe. Joseph sagged against his car. We actually did it. We did. She paused. There's something else. The board is promoting you. VP of Data Integrity. Salary increase, full benefits, stock options. It's substantial. The words took a moment to process. VP? You found a $2.1 million fraud that the CFO was running. They want to make sure nothing like this happens again. You proved you can't be bought. Joseph's mind raced through the implications. Better salary meant he could afford the surgery, could pay for Cynthia's medical care without draining every resource, could build a future that didn't involve constant financial stress. When do they need an answer? You're saying yes, right? He thought about Ryan's words. Your daughter could have had her surgery next week. The bribe had been real, the offer legitimate, and he'd turned it down because accepting it meant teaching Cynthia that principles were negotiable. Now he had another path, one earned through doing the right thing even when it cost everything. Yeah, I'm saying yes. Rebecca's smile reached her eyes this time. Good. Because I wasn't taking no for an answer. They stood there in the concrete silence, the hum of distant traffic filtering through the garage. Joseph pulled her close, kissed the top of her head. Thank you. For what? For fighting. For standing with me when it would have been easier to walk away. Her arms came around him. I wasn't going to walk away. Not from you. Not from Cynthia. His phone rang. The hospital. He answered. Dr. Chen's voice was professional, calm. Mr. Davis, we have an opening for Cynthia's surgery. A cancellation freed up our best surgical team. We can schedule her for 3 weeks from now if you're ready. Joseph's throat tightened. I'm ready. We're ready. They discussed logistics, pre-op appointments, what to expect. When he hung up, Rebecca was watching him. The surgery? 3 weeks. They had a cancellation. Her hand found his. She's going to be fine. Say that again. She's going to be fine. You're going to be fine. We're all going to be fine. He wanted to believe that, chose to believe it, squeezed her hand once, then let go. I need to pick up Cynthia. Tell her the news. Can I come with you? The question carried weight neither of them acknowledged directly. This wasn't just about delivering news. This was about Rebecca choosing to be present for the hard conversations, the scary moments, the reality of what loving him meant. Yeah, I'd like that. They drove separately to the elementary school, met in the parking lot. Joseph signed Cynthia out early, citing a family matter. She came running down the hallway, backpack bouncing, gap-toothed grin wide when she saw Rebecca. "Miss Rebecca, you came to school." Rebecca crouched to her level. "We have some news. Good news." They drove to a park near the lake, sat on a bench overlooking the water. Cynthia swung her legs, sensing something important was coming. Joseph took a breath. "Remember how the doctors said you need surgery to fix your heart?" Cynthia nodded, her smile fading. "They have an opening, 3 weeks from now. It's going to fix the problem so you can run and play soccer again." She processed this, fear flickering across her face. "Will it hurt?" "You'll be asleep during the surgery. When you wake up it might hurt a little, but the doctors will give you medicine to help." "Will you be there?" "The whole time. I'm not going anywhere." Cynthia looked at Rebecca. "Will you be there too?" Rebecca's voice was steady. "If you want me to be." "I want you to be." "Then I'll be there." Cynthia nodded, accepting this. Then she surprised them both by climbing into Rebecca's lap, wrapping small arms around her neck. Rebecca's arms came up automatically, holding her close. Joseph watched them, his throat tight, thinking about the impossibility of this moment 3 months ago. That night, after Cynthia fell asleep, Joseph and Rebecca sat on his couch with glasses of wine. Neither of them was drinking. The apartment felt different somehow, fuller, like it had expanded to accommodate the life growing inside it. Rebecca's voice was quiet. "I resigned." Joseph turned to look at her. "What?" "Not immediately. I'll stay through the transition, find my replacement, but I'm stepping down as CEO. "Rebecca, I don't want that life anymore." Her eyes met his. 80-hour weeks, constant travel, board meetings and investor calls and living out of hotel rooms. "I want mornings making burnt pancakes. I want bedtime stories. I want this." Joseph set down his wine glass. "You're giving up your company for me?" "I'm choosing a different kind of success, one that doesn't measure worth in stock prices and quarterly earnings." She paused. "I'm choosing family over career. Isn't that what you'd tell me to do?" He thought about the life he'd built after Michelle died, the careful boundaries, the protective walls, the decision to make Cynthia his entire world because it was safer than risking his heart again, and how Rebecca had walked through all of it like the walls didn't exist. "You're sure?" "I've never been more sure of anything." He kissed her, slow, deep, deliberate. When they pulled apart, his forehead rested against hers. "Move in with us." Rebecca pulled back slightly. "What?" "Move in. Not today, not tomorrow, but soon, after the surgery, after things settle. Move in, and let's see what we can build." Her eyes searched his face. "That's a big step." "I know, but I'm ready, and I think you are too." She was quiet for a long moment. Then she smiled, genuine and unguarded. "Okay." "Okay?" "Yes. I'll move in. We'll build something. Together." They sat there until midnight, planning futures and making promises. When Rebecca finally left, Joseph stood at the door watching her drive away, feeling like everything in his life had realigned towards something he'd stopped believing was possible. The next 3 weeks moved in a blur. Pre-op appointments, blood work, EKGs. Cynthia handled it all with the kind of bravery that made Joseph's chest ache. She asked questions, demanded honest answers, processed information with the seriousness of someone twice her age. Rebecca came to every appointment, held Cynthia's hand during blood draws, made her laugh when the anxiety got too heavy, became part of the routine so naturally that the medical staff assumed she was Cynthia's mother. Joseph got the official promotion letter. VP of Data Integrity, starting salary $140,000, full benefits including expanded medical coverage. The surgery would cost him $12,000 out of pocket instead of $60,000. Manageable. Possible. He signed the acceptance letter and felt the weight of 3 years of financial stress lift slightly. Kevin threw him a congratulations lunch that turned into an impromptu celebration. Half the data analytics team showed up, bought him drinks, told stories about Ryan's increasingly erratic final days before security escorted him out. The district attorney had filed charges. Trial was set for next spring. Donald called Rebecca, asked her to reconsider the resignation. She declined. Offered to help find her replacement, agreed to consult during the transition. But she was done. She'd built her company, sold it, proved she could compete at the highest level. Now she wanted something different. The night before Cynthia's surgery, Joseph couldn't sleep. He lay in bed staring at the ceiling, running through every possible complication, every statistic Dr. Chen had mentioned, every risk factor and percentage. His phone buzzed. Rebecca. "You awake?" He called her. "Yeah? Want company?" "Always." She arrived 20 minutes later in sweatpants and one of his old t-shirts she'd stolen weeks ago. They lay in his bed, her head on his chest, his arm around her shoulders. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Finally, Rebecca's voice broke the silence. "She's going to be okay." "You don't know that." "I know she's strong. I know she has the best surgeon in the state. I know she has a father who'd move mountains for her." She paused. "And I know she has us. Both of us." Joseph's hand found hers. "I'm terrified." "Me too. What if something goes wrong? Then we handle it. Together." He pulled her closer. "I don't know what I'd do without you." Rebecca propped herself up on one elbow, looked down at him. "You're not going to find out. I'm not going anywhere." "Promise?" "I promise." They fell asleep like that, tangled together, both of them holding on. Surgery day arrived with cold November rain. Joseph woke Cynthia at 5 a.m., helped her into comfortable clothes. She wasn't allowed to eat, hadn't had anything since midnight. She was cranky, scared, trying to be brave. Rebecca met them at the hospital at 6. They checked in, went through pre-op procedures. Cynthia changed into a hospital gown covered in cartoon elephants. A nurse started an IV, gave her medication to help her relax. Within 10 minutes, Cynthia was drowsy, her words slurring slightly. She looked at Joseph, then at Rebecca. "If I don't wake up..." Joseph's heart stopped. "You're going to wake up. But if I don't, you have to promise you'll be happy. Both of you. You have to promise you'll be a family." Rebecca's eyes filled. She took Cynthia's small hand. "You're going to wake up. And when you do, we're going to be a family. All 3 of us." Cynthia smiled, satisfied. "Okay. I love you, Daddy." "I love you too, sweetheart." She looked at Rebecca. "I love you, Miss Rebecca." Rebecca's voice broke. "I love you too, Cynthia." The surgical team came to take her back. Joseph kissed her forehead. Rebecca squeezed her hand one more time. Then they were wheeling her away, through double doors that swung shut with a finality that made Joseph's knees weak. Rebecca caught him, steadied him. They found the surgical waiting room. Vinyl chairs, old magazines, a TV playing morning news nobody watched. They sat together, hands clasped, waiting. Hours passed like years. A nurse came out every 60 minutes with updates. "She's doing well. Surgery is progressing normally." At hour 3, Dr. Chen appeared in scrubs, mask pulled down. Joseph and Rebecca stood as one. Dr. Chen smiled. "The surgery went perfectly. We repaired the mitral valve, no complications. She's in recovery now." Joseph's legs gave out. He sat down hard, put his head in his hands. Rebecca's hand found his shoulder, gripping tight. Dr. Chen continued. "She'll be in recovery for about an hour. Then we'll move her to ICU overnight for monitoring. You can see her in about 30 minutes. When she left, Joseph let himself cry. Rebecca sat beside him, arms around him, her own tears silent and steady. They held each other in that waiting room, two people who'd started as strangers 4 months ago, now bound by something that felt unbreakable. When they finally wheeled Cynthia to her room, she was asleep, tubes and monitors attached, a bandage covering the incision on her chest. Joseph took one side of the bed, Rebecca the other. They sat vigil through the night, taking turns sleeping in the uncomfortable hospital chairs, making sure one of them was always awake when Cynthia stirred. She woke up around midnight, groggy and disoriented, saw Joseph first. "Daddy?" His hand found hers, careful of the IV. "I'm here." "Did it work?" "It worked perfectly. Your heart's fixed." She looked around, found Rebecca on the other side. "You stayed." Rebecca brushed hair off her forehead. "I told you I would." Cynthia smiled, then fell back asleep. Joseph met Rebecca's eyes across the bed. No words needed. Everything that mattered was in this room. 3 days later they brought Cynthia home. She had strict instructions: no running, no lifting, no strenuous activity for 6 weeks. She hated every restriction but followed them because Dr. Chen had explained in detail what would happen if she didn't. Rebecca had already moved some of her things into Joseph's apartment: clothes in his closet, toiletries in the bathroom, books on the shelf. She took a leave of absence from work, dedicated herself to Cynthia's recovery. They fell into a routine. Joseph worked from home when possible, went to the office when necessary. Rebecca handled medications, wound care, entertainment for a 7-year-old who couldn't run around. They traded off nights, making sure Cynthia was never alone. 2 weeks post-surgery, Cynthia's school sent homework. She sat at the kitchen table working through math problems while Rebecca read beside her. Joseph made dinner, something simple, pasta with vegetables. The apartment smelled like garlic and oregano. Cynthia looked up from her worksheet. "Miss Rebecca?" "Yeah, sweetness?" "Are you going to marry my daddy?" Rebecca's pen stopped moving. Joseph froze at the stove. Cynthia waited, patient and serious. Rebecca set down her pen. "Would you want me to?" Cynthia considered this. "Mommy was Mommy. You're you. But I think Mommy would like you, and I like you. So yeah, I want you to marry Daddy." Joseph turned off the stove, came to the table. He crouched beside Cynthia's chair. "That's a big decision. We don't have to rush it." Cynthia looked at him with Michelle's eyes. "But you love her, right?" "Yes." "And she loves you?" Rebecca nodded. "Very much." "Then it's not rushing. It's just doing what makes sense." Joseph met Rebecca's eyes across the table, saw his own feelings reflected back. This 7-year-old child had just given them permission to build the future they'd been dancing around for weeks. That night, after Cynthia fell asleep, Joseph and Rebecca sat on the couch. He pulled a small box from his pocket, held it without opening it. "I bought this 2 weeks ago. Was waiting for the right time." Rebecca stared at the box. "Is this?" "I'm not asking yet. Just showing you that I'm thinking about it, that I want this to be permanent." She took the box, opened it. Simple gold band, no stone. Elegant, understated, exactly what she would have chosen. It's perfect. "So when I do ask, the answer is yes." Joseph took the ring out, slipped it onto her finger. It fit perfectly. Rebecca looked at it, then at him. "We're really doing this. If you want to." "I want to." She paused. "But I need to say something first." Joseph waited. Rebecca took a breath. "I'm not going to replace Michelle. I'm not trying to erase her or pretend she didn't matter. She was Cynthia's mother. She was your wife. She'll always be part of this family." Joseph's throat tightened. "I know. I want her pictures on our walls. I want Cynthia to talk about her. I want to honor what you had while building what we have." He pulled her close. "You're exactly right. And that's exactly what we'll do." They sat there until midnight, planning a wedding that would include Michelle's memory without being haunted by it. A ceremony that celebrated new beginnings while honoring what came before. Christmas came 6 weeks after surgery. Cynthia was cleared for normal activity, her incision healed to a thin pink line. They spent the holiday at Joseph's apartment, Rebecca's things now fully integrated into every room. Cynthia got art supplies, new books, a soccer ball she couldn't wait to use. Joseph gave Rebecca a necklace, simple silver, a small C pendant. For Cynthia, but also for them. Rebecca gave Joseph a framed photo, the three of them at the hospital the day after surgery, exhausted and relieved, looking like a family. They ate dinner together, turkey that Joseph cooked, sides that Rebecca managed without burning. Cynthia talked non-stop, her energy fully returned, her laughter filling the apartment in a way it hadn't since before Michelle died. After dinner, Cynthia brought out new drawings. She'd been working on them in secret, wanted to reveal them as gifts. The first one showed the three of them on the couch, Cynthia in the middle. Title at the top, My Family. The second drawing showed a woman with Michelle's features floating above them, smiling, surrounded by stars. Title, Mommy Watching. Joseph's vision blurred. Cynthia explained seriously. Mommy's not gone. She's just in a different place. But she can still see us, and she's happy we're happy. Rebecca wiped her eyes. That's beautiful, sweetness. Cynthia beamed. I know. New Year's came quiet and perfect. They stayed home, watched the ball drop on TV. At midnight, Joseph kissed Rebecca while Cynthia made noise with pots and pans. They stood in the kitchen, confetti from party poppers littering the floor, starting a new year that felt full of promise. January brought the wedding. Small ceremony, immediate family only. Kevin as best man, Natalie as Rebecca's witness, Cynthia as flower girl, wearing a purple dress that matched Michelle's favorite color. Donald walked Rebecca down the aisle, his face showing pride mixed with the knowledge that he'd almost lost her to his own stubbornness. He shook Joseph's hand before stepping back, whispered something Joseph barely caught. Take care of my daughter, Joseph whispered back, with everything I have. The ceremony was short, traditional vows, no elaborate speeches. When the officiant said they could kiss, Joseph pulled Rebecca close, sealed the promise they'd been building since that first coffee date. At the reception, Cynthia gave a speech she'd written herself. My daddy was sad for a long time after Mommy died, but then Miss Rebecca came and made him smile again, and now we're a family. I think Mommy's happy about that. I know I am. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. That night, in the apartment that was now truly theirs, Joseph and Rebecca stood by Cynthia's bed watching her sleep. The surgery scar on her chest rose and fell with each breath, proof of what they'd survived together. Rebecca's voice was barely a whisper. Thank you. Joseph looked at her. For what? For letting me in, for trusting me with her, for building this with me. He turned to face her fully. I should be thanking you. You walked into our mess and decided to stay. She smiled. It wasn't a mess. It was a life waiting for someone to be brave enough to join it. They left Cynthia's room, went to their own, lay in bed holding each other, the weight of the day settling into something peaceful. Joseph thought about Kevin's text from 6 months ago. Blind date, Sunday, 3 p.m. Thought about how close he'd come to saying no, how easily this entire future could have not existed. He thought about the coffee shop, the grocery store confrontation, the hospital waiting room, the boardroom where he'd refused to compromise his integrity even when it cost everything. Every moment had led here, to this bed, this woman, this family. Rebecca's voice pulled him back. What are you thinking about? How lucky I am. We're both lucky. No. He kissed her forehead. I'm luckier, because I almost said no to that blind date. She laughed softly. Kevin would have never let you live it down. He already won't let me live it down. Every time I see him, he reminds me he's responsible for this. Is he wrong? Joseph considered. No, he's not wrong. They fell asleep like that, wrapped in each other, the apartment quiet except for the sound of 3 people breathing in different rooms, a family that had built itself from courage and choice and the decision to keep showing up even when it was hard. 18 months later, Joseph stood in his office on the executive floor, nameplate on the door. Joseph Davis, VP Data Integrity. Cynthia's drawings covered one wall, a photo of his wedding day on his desk. Through the window he could see the city stretching out in all directions. His phone buzzed. Rebecca. Can you come home early? I have news. He texted back. Good news or bad news? Life-changing news. Just come home. He left at 4, drove through traffic that didn't bother him anymore. Everything was easier when you had something worth driving home to. Rebecca met him at the door, Cynthia beside her. Both of them were grinning in a way that made his heart rate pick up. What's going on? Rebecca held up a small stick. Pregnancy test. 2 lines. The world stopped. Started again. Kept going. I'm pregnant. Cynthia bounced on her toes. I'm going to be a big sister. Joseph looked at Rebecca, then at Cynthia, then back at Rebecca. His hands found her waist, pulled her close. Are you sure? Doctor confirmed it this morning. 8 weeks. He kissed her. Deep, grateful, overwhelmed. When he pulled back, Cynthia was watching them with that knowing smile she got when adults were being obvious. Are you happy, Daddy? Joseph crouched to her level. I'm so happy I don't have words for it. She hugged him, fierce and tight. Me too. That night, after Cynthia went to bed, Joseph and Rebecca sat on the couch, her head on his shoulder, his hand on her still flat stomach. We're going to need a bigger place. She laughed. We're going to need a lot of things. We'll figure it out. Together? Always together. Joseph thought about the journey that had brought them here. The blind date set up as a joke. The coffee shop meeting that wasn't supposed to matter. The slow build of something that felt inevitable in hindsight. He thought about dignity and choices and the cost of doing what was right. About Cynthia's surgery and Ryan's trial and the boardroom where truth had won over lies. He thought about Michelle, about the love that shaped him into someone capable of loving again. About how Rebecca hadn't tried to replace what was lost, just added something new. He thought about his daughter sleeping down the hall, healthy and whole, about to become a big sister to a child who would grow up knowing that family wasn't just blood. It was choice and commitment and showing up day after day. His phone buzzed. Kevin. Heard the news. Congratulations, VP. You knocked up your CEO wife. Very corporate of you. Joseph laughed, typed back. Still think blind dates are pranks? Kevin's reply was immediate. Nah, sometimes they're the best punchline of your life. Joseph set the phone down. Rebecca stirred against him. What's funny? Kevin's still taking credit for this. Let him. He's earned it. Joseph kissed the top of her head. Yeah, he has. They sat there as the evening darkened outside, the apartment warm and full. On the wall, Cynthia's newest drawing hung in a frame, all 4 of them together. Joseph, Rebecca, Cynthia, and a small bundle in Rebecca's arms. Above them, faint and sketched in light pencil, Michelle's face among the stars. Smiling. Title at the top in Cynthia's careful handwriting, My Family, Complete. Joseph stared at it, throat tight with gratitude for everything he'd been given, everything he'd almost lost, everything he'd fought to build. Rebecca's voice was drowsy. What are you thinking? He pulled her closer. That I'm the luckiest man alive. Say it again. I'm the luckiest man alive, and I'm going to spend the rest of my life making sure you and our kids know exactly how much you're loved. She tilted her head up, kissed him slow and sweet. That's all I ever wanted. Outside, the city lights flickered on one by one. Inside, a family that had built itself from courage and coffee and the willingness to take a chance settled into the evening. Joseph closed his eyes, held his wife, thought about his sleeping daughter and the child growing inside Rebecca, thought about dignity and truth and earned happy endings, thought about how sometimes the thing you're most afraid of is exactly what saves you, how sometimes a blind date set up as a joke becomes the beginning of everything that matters, how sometimes, if you're brave enough to show up and honest enough to stay, love finds a way to build itself from the broken pieces, and how that, more than anything else, was worth fighting for.